We are recording, so you are good to start, Bob.
Okay, well, welcome to the DAP. I'm Bob Gorman, chairman of the DAP. You've all been here before, but we're going to start with introductions. You'll get about 15 minutes to make your presentation. We'll ask for a staff report from the planning group. Then the DAP will have a question and answer period, and we'll make some recommendations. And I'll open it for introductions. I've already introduced myself. The panel, let's start with Ethan.
Good evening. I'm Ethan Marchand. I'm an architect.
Dan?
Dan Lovett, civil engineer.
Vivian?
Hi, Vivian Stone, and I'm an architect.
And Larry? You're on mute, Larry.
I'm Larry Quarrick, and I'm a landscape architect.
Okay, planning folks?
Anthony Cataldo, Department of Planning and Zoning.
Nicholas Haynes, Department of Planning and Zoning.
Okay, if you'll introduce your team, and you have 15 minutes to go.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And try to start to share my screen. I am Brandon Rao with Bowler. Joining us tonight from the development team, we have Chad Bond representing Auto Spa Express. We have Emily Pate from Bowler. Can everybody see my screen first of all?
Yep.
Cool. Eric McWilliams and Eric McWilliams from Bowler. So that rounds out our development team that's here. So here to present you tonight a proposed Auto Spa Express car wash facility at 8528 Baltimore National Pike in Ellicott City. Obviously, judging by the address, you know it's along the Route 40 corridor, and looking forward to the discussion with the panel tonight. So I already introduced the development team, Chad from representing Auto Spa Express, the Bowler team. Architect on this is Alsip and Associates. Chip Alsip unfortunately had a last minute conflict this evening, will not be able to join. Chad's able to talk from a building standpoint. And then from a signage standpoint, Pasadena Signs is a sign vendor. Just give some context and location. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this, the location, but generally looking over here at the vicinity map on the right side, US 29 is on the left side here, 70 up here. This is 40 coming through here. You can start to see the interchange of 29. County building is right down around here. So the site here is Normandy Center Drive. The Normandy Shopping Center is split by that drive, and it's kind of right in here. Switching over to the aerial view, and I'll zoom in a little bit to help with this. The subject property is made up of two lots that is approximately 4.1 acres combined. It is bound on the east side by Normandy Center Drive, on the south by US 40, the north by the Normandy Shopping Center, and on the east by the stream that kind of straddles the property line and associated buffers. The site is currently accessed by 4 locations. There's 4 curb cuts along Normandy Center Drive and 3 curb cuts here along US 40. The subject property is zoned B2, and a car wash facility is permitted by right. The property is currently developed though by a car sales and service center and use with associated parking that you can see throughout on the aerial. Flipping through, so I'm not going to go through every contextual photo that was included in the submission, but just generally want to touch on the current and existing conditions along Route 40. Currently, there are no pedestrian improvements along 40. Here in these photos, this is 40 on the left side, on this one 40 on the right, but you can kind of see this is the site, the subject property with the sales lot. There's an expanse of asphalt along the frontage here that is really used now for, you can actually see an aerial if you look over here, some cars parked out in the right of way. So there's some excess pavement here that in proposed conditions you'll see that we're looking to mitigate and remove. I'll come back to landscaping, but getting into kind of the illustrative plan and the proposed improvements. So we're proposing a 5,216 square foot car wash facility. It has a 130-foot long single lane tunnel for washing the cars. From an access standpoint, the 4 curb cuts along Normandy Center Drive will remain. The existing use, the existing buildings of the car sales and service will remain. But we will be consolidating from an access standpoint along 40 from the 3 access points down to 2. So the access that's really not even used nearest the intersection will remain, and then we're consolidating the next 2 into one right in, right out movement. In order to access the car wash, if you're looking to come off 40 or even Normandy Center Drive, we are maintaining full circulation around the existing building in both directions. But if you come in off 40, you come up here, make a left, and you'd enter into these are 3 pay lanes. So queuing would occur back in this direction. We have room for over 15 queuing spaces, which from an operational standpoint is more than enough. But once you pay, you then circulate around into the single lane queue, and then proceed on a conveyor belt, enter the building and the tunnel through and conveyor belt through the building and exit here onto the east side. Once you had your car washed through there, you'd be able to then drive over, and there's vacuum spaces to clean out the interior of your car proposed out along the frontage here. In addition, there are for employees to meet the parking requirements, some standard spaces out front as well as in the rear from that standpoint. From a pedestrian standpoint, we are proposing internal sidewalks to get from the vacuum spaces over to the building, as well as a connection out to Route 40 and sidewalk improvements along the frontage of the subject property within Route 40. That'll be a 6-foot wide sidewalk. To help with the vehicular circulation, there will be wayfinding signs, and we'll go through those as they're in the package. We'll get to those in some future slides. From a topographic standpoint, there's significant topographic and elevation change across the site. So the high side being over here, we'll call it on the right, or the east side, dropping off as you get towards the stream on the west side. From where my hand is here, kind of in front of the service building, over to the west side of the car wash layout, there's about 12 feet of elevation drop. And in order to create a pad, we actually have to raise this west side of the pad and raise the pad up to create a level area for the use. And with that, we are proposing retaining walls. The retaining wall will run along the west side and into the north side of the car wash building. What this retaining wall allows us to do is actually increase the existing buffer from the stream. So we're removing some impervious there. That's from that parking that you may remember from the existing use, and actually providing some additional green or buffer over in that area. The additional retaining wall will be located here, again, internal to the site, between the sales lot and the proposed access. Just from a reference on where the building will set from an elevation standpoint compared to 40, the building's finished floor is approximately at grade with the grade at 40 at our new access. But by the time you get down here, kind of before you cross the stream, 40 will be actually about 13 feet lower than the building first finished floor. Out here, we are using a graded slope to make up the grade between the sidewalk and the site improvements. And then just from a point of reference, the existing building will sit about 1 foot higher from a first floor standpoint than the car wash. So these are precedent images of some of the proposed landscaping. Again, we'll get into that in a moment, as well as just the retaining wall material proposed, be a standard MSE wall. Grading we already touched on, but do want to touch on stormwater. While we are in Ellicott City, we actually our watershed is to the Sucker Branch, so we are not within the Tiber and the more restrictive management area. So no quantity management is required, but we are required to meet the MDE to the ESD water quality requirements to clean the water. We are achieving that by way of proprietary filtration devices that are approved by MDE for water quality and ESD purposes. These are the cross sections, two of them. This is section AA, and this may be a little hard to see, but they are in the packet. So section AA is actually cutting from east to west. So east being over on the right side, west over here. So this would be the stream. Normandy Center would be over here. This is the 130-foot length of the tunnel. So you'd enter here, exit here. But as you can see, the retaining wall here with the sales lot up here, and then the retaining wall on the west side as you get down into the stream to again increase that buffer. This then is turning 90 degrees, kind of looking to the east. So north side, the shopping center is over here, existing service lot here. That retaining wall they mentioned on the north side of the car wash building is here. These are the pay lanes. This would be the building itself. So you come through the pay lanes, kind of circle around, you enter into the building here. Vacuum spaces in the next slope that we mentioned out into the Route 40. Getting into the building elevations and perspectives. So Auto Spa Express, if you've ever seen one, and there's some out that are open in Frederick and in Harford County, but they have a very distinct branding, and it's a bright blue with this yellow stripe. That's their standard, their prototype that they take pride in. What's been decided on this one is to pull that back a little bit, given the location and obviously the corridor. They went with a more natural tones. So typically what you'd see is instead of this gray brown color, it would be bright blue. So that's the change here. So this is the elevation, the perspective you'd see as if you're standing on 40. So it's the south elevation looking into the site. Tunnel entrance would you enter here and you'd exit over here for perspective. This then is the opposite side, as if you're internal to the property. This is the pay lane. You kind of be driving around here, pay lane, loop around, enter the tunnel here, exit here. This here is the exit. So cars would be coming at you here. Again, pay lane, you come around here, loop around the other side and come out here. And then this is the west elevation, kind of what you see if you're standing in the stream. Pay lane, come around and enter the tunnel here. This is a precedent image of the opaque or solid masonry structure we proposed for the dumpster enclosure. And then here are the vacuum spaces that we're proposing. And here you kind of see that blue branding, which really adds a nice accent, I think, to some of the natural colors that are proposed in the building. And as you can see, these aren't your typical vacuum spaces that you see at some of the other convenience stores that are local, that are just kind of a stand vacuum with hose dangling out. Getting into the site signage, most of the site signage is either wayfinding, from enter, proceed in this direction from a circulation standpoint, or operational, obviously hours and pricing. Here's more examples, obviously, of the pricing, the operational piece, making sure you lower your antennas, directions before you enter the tunnel, and again, the wayfinding piece. Getting into the building signage, so this is actually looking, this is the north elevation, so as if you're standing on the site, north of the building, the US 40 would be on the other side of the building, pay lane here, two building signs and the car wash identification here. This now is the US 40 elevation, so if you're standing on 40, looking at the building, tunnel entrance, tunnel exit, the one identification sign and the car wash. This would then be the tunnel exit with the pay lanes, identifying obviously directional from a paying standpoint, and then no building signage proposed on this is the tunnel entrance sign as if you were standing in the stream. So this is a freestanding sign that is not in the package that we submitted, but in subsequent discussions with the development team, wanted to make sure we get this into the presentation and want to propose this. So this would be a 20-foot sign, double-sided, with the Audispo Express branding. From a location standpoint, we'd be proposing it here again, 40 along the bottom. This is where that freestanding sign would be proposed. And then just from a lighting standpoint, from a lighting standpoint, we do have a site lights integrated with building mounted lights, meets Howard County lighting regulations as is required in the corridor. These are just the images of the specific fixtures. And then here is, we skipped over landscaping earlier, get to landscaping here. So generally, just general overview here, and sure you can answer questions and get more specifics. Street trees proposed along the frontage, some shrubs to soften that slope as you raise it up into the site. Obviously, internal landscaping, shrubs here along the internal retaining wall. And then, Eric, if you're able to unmute, there is, based on some prior conversations with BGE, we would like to propose a substitution of these street trees. And Eric, as a landscape architect, can maybe provide a little more clarity on what we propose to do there.
Yeah, it was a discussion with BGE, and of course Howard County requires the coordination with BGE to that we're too close to an overhead wire, so we can't put in the shade trees as we had originally anticipated for this section of Route 40, and we're going to have to do ornamental trees. So we propose to revise this plan to remove the shade trees and place in Cirrus canadensis, which is the red bud. We would have to put 10. They're according to county code, they would be planted closer together than what you would have with full-size shade trees.
Thanks, Eric. And that's it. So ready to answer, I guess, staff report first, but here to answer any questions or participate in the discussion. So thank you.
Okay, Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Rowe. I think you did, it's a very thorough explanation of, what's happening on the site. I'm sure most of the panel is very familiar with the property. I personally drive by it all the time. I see it all the time. We're located on Route 40. The property that is in question is 3.6 acres. It is Zone B2, which does support the commercial car wash use. On site, there are, as Mr. Rowe mentioned, environmentals. There's a tributary of the Sucker Branch that falls immediately off site on the western portion, which does place a lot of the existing vegetation on site inside the stream buffer area. So it is, that is sort of a protected and environmentally sensitive area. I think that the proposal doing a pretty good job of staying outside of that. There are some issues that I think Department of Planning and Zoning we'd like the panel to touch on. As everybody is well aware, that it does have direct frontage on Route 40, and it is subject to the Route 40 design guidelines. And so there are issues such as the landscaping and sidewalk and things of that nature, I believe, that are being worked on site, given the on-site conditions such as overhead wires and utilities. I think they're doing their best. But if the panel could maybe make recommendations, is there something that the panel could maybe suggest that would maybe be a better fit, in some of these instances, maybe some fine-tuning of landscaping, something like that. That maybe the design team hadn't thought of, that might improve visibility, but also still address street tree requirements and things like that. If the panel could also make recommendations, orientation layout, does the current configuration of the property, does it suit suit the site and still meet the intent of the Route 40 guidelines? Is there anything or any maybe options that the panel thinks that could maybe maybe they could do different, maybe make circulation, pedestrian circulation, vehicular circulation on site a little bit better? We'd be happy to hear any input the panel might have.
Okay, thanks, Nick. I have a couple of questions before I open it up to the rest of the panel. Is this being developed by the other property on site, the car dealer?
As far as is the developer that car dealer? No, they are separate entities. So this is a separate entity that will lease the car wash. And Chad, if I'm saying anything wrong, please speak up. So it is a separate entity, Bob. I think, does that answer your question?
Yeah, because I was just wondering, we've got a section of sidewalk that starts nowhere and ends nowhere. And I know it's the case all up and down Route 40, and someday it'll be connected, but none of us will be alive. I just wonder, what is the grade change on either side of that driveway coming out of so if someone wants to put a sidewalk in front of the car dealership in some future, perfect world, is that possible? Without steps?
So within the 40 right away, is that the question? Kind of the grade change?
Yeah.
It's a consistent slope along 40 and I can.
Is there a retaining wall in front of the car dealership?
So maybe if I share my screen again instead of me trying to point. One moment. Share. So let me get back to the grading. There's a grading plan.
Yeah, it sort of stops at that point.
So from a sidewalk standpoint, heading to the west, we started getting into utility conflicts down here, as well as understanding there's a stream crossing.
Yeah, right. But on the other side,
that way.
On the other side,
Sure.
more likely to have
this
people.
way, there is a retaining wall proposed here between the what I'll call the upper sales lot and the proposed car wash. We do not control. I say we loosely. We as the developer does not control this lot nor the frontage from that standpoint. And our concern with the slope out here would be consistent. To continue up through here. But depending on what they do with the future development here, may affect what they propose from a frontage improvement here. So these grades, if they were ever going to tie into this access drive, would have to be lowered.
So they own the property, but they're just leasing it to the car wash.
Correct. Yeah. So the owner owns 2 lots that total 4.1 some odd acres. This being one lot, this being the second larger lot, and then we are leasing this area.
I would suggest to planning that to approve this, and I may make this a motion, to approve this lease by the primary owner, that they at least take out the driveway and do some landscaping along that edge that's compatible with what you're doing. Even though it's going to be closer to Route 40 and there's no sidewalk. And that'll go nowhere, but I'm going to make that anyway. My second comment is when you go back to the rendered master plan, if you could for a second. Yeah, this one. It just looks like you're taking down some significant vegetation for some reason to get down to the stream valley. Am I reading that correctly or not?
No, that is probably misrepresented on here. So we are not disturbing within the stream buffer at all. So this is just part of our black and white. We use the black and white base to render this up. It happens to be overlaid. So we are not clearing any of this green area. We are actually making the buffer, well, I'll call the buffer, the distance between the stream and any impervious area wider and greater. So no, we are not disturbing any trees down in that area. We do have a site, obviously storm drain outfall here that may require some limited clearing down here at this location, but it's all outside of that stream buffer.
Okay, it just looked like a significant removal of trees for some reason, like a spillway or something. My other question is for the landscape architect. The evergreen shrubbery that you're using along Route 40, is that on the hillside or at the top of the hillside?
So this drawing, it's on the hillside. We want to slide it up a little bit closer to the bench, at least the first row. And in all honesty, if we have the flexibility, what I'd like to do is maybe make this 2 varieties. Keep the blue girl hollies, put those up on the bench, and then something smaller in front of it. where the slope starts. Obviously, the slope itself is going to be pretty difficult to place shrubs, ornamental shrubs on.
Yeah, I'd prefer them at the top of the slope where they actually do some screening. We reviewed another project like this, which I won't mention where it is, but they surprised us with all their vacuum dinosaurs along the edge of the road, and they looked just atrocious. And we didn't catch it. I hope this doesn't look the same, and I think some shrubbery at the top of that hill would really help. Um, People aren't impulse buying here. There's a big sign. They know they're coming to get their car washed. So I don't think you need all that much visibility of the vacuum cleaners. And you have a nice sign out front. My other question on the landscape, and I'm going to defer to Larry on this. Instead of, I don't know exactly where the overhead wires are on this, but I wonder if there's some upright trees that might be suitable here that don't interfere with the wires, that would actually give you better visibility of the site and actually be significant trees. You know, the trees you're proposing, they're great trees, but they're not long-lived. And I think there might be something better if we have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, Bob, I don't disagree with that. You know, our initial approach was Armstrong maples, which are an upright maple.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, BGE has that 40-foot separation requirement, which the county doesn't give us flexibility on. At least they haven't. So we would need to switch it to some sort of ornamental, and really all the ornamentals in you know, honesty, do not have a shorter lifespan than your shade trees.
Well, they're not a bad choice. I just um, I have my own personal prejudices when it comes to utility companies, but we won't go there. So I'm done with my comments. Let's hear from Larry while we're still on landscape, and then we'll move to architecture. Larry? Larry, you on mute? Larry's
He might be
gone.
frozen.
Larry's
Okay,
gone.
I hope that my voice is coming through clear. It seems like I have a poor connection tonight and things are breaking up from my end. Is my
We can
voice
hear
coming
you.
through okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, Larry.
I'm not on mute.
Okay, we can hear you. We're going to come back to you, Larry. We have Ethan and
Okay.
Vivian. So Ethan, go ahead.
Yes. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think, but first and foremost, I want to commend you guys for, really going above and beyond with studying the landscape buffers around this site. I think that's incredibly important for what you're proposing, and I think it's certainly not unnoticed. I think that the use of this site, as Nick mentioned, is permitted here. I echo Bob's concern about the vacuum dinosaurs. I think there's a challenge there with the intent of the Route 40 design guidelines of creating, that street front kind of boulevard feel around what is now a suburban sprawl thoroughfare. The guidelines are very clear about putting buildings close to the front of the site, about not putting parking lots in front of the site. And I feel that's just compounded, tenfold by these vacuum, brightly colored vacuum structures. I wonder if there's some architectural treatment that can be done, or if there's other configurations of the site that could address that. I think what the resulting impact of this is creating a very infrastructure forward identity of this site on the street, as opposed to the intention of that guidelines, which is the boulevard kind of pedestrian street. I'd be interested to hear your opinions on that. and in response to that, if you have looked at other options and what could potentially be done. And then my other comment would just be in regards to the signage, and the signage that is proposed should reference back to that same guideline manual, and understand the requirements for freestanding signs and the way they tie back to the architecture. It feels to me like there's a lot of branding that is unique to this auto spa brand that is carrying through that doesn't meet the intent of the guidelines that are set forth.
Sure. And Ethan, thanks for your thoughts. So to touch on kind of the configuration, because Chad can attest to this, we went around and around on different layout options. We go by, from a conceptual standpoint, by letters, and I think we were on L or M, and I don't have enough fingers to count how many that is. But different things we did look at was pulling it forward. How did that work from the building that is forward? How does that work from an operational standpoint? Really, where it all came back to was the restriction of maintaining circulation around this existing use. So it's the circulation, so the service center can still function, the sales center can still function, and you can still access, again, integrated access as the corridor manual guidelines identify. Have those integrated accesses with these multiple uses. And have a site that someone can actually find their way to the car wash, or vice versa to the sales center. And with that, this area's pinch point is really where we came down with having the issues from that standpoint. So pulling this forward, moving these vacuum spaces, or this row of parking back here, it didn't work from a function standpoint and a circulation standpoint. We can pull out all the different iterations if you trust us. Or if you don't trust us, but we did look at that with that consideration in mind. Now, with that, we do meet the 100-foot maximum building setback requirement. So we're within, less than, I guess is the right term to use, 100 feet from the 40 right away. And additionally, the guidelines do allow for one row of parking in between the building and the road. So we did keep that in mind as well. We didn't just completely ignore the guidelines and try to force this, want to shove this down anybody's throat from that standpoint. What else did you touch on? Signage, certainly we'll look at this. I think your main concern was freestanding sign. Is that correct, Ethan?
Yeah, I think I was, from what I see, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but I would consider most of these signs to be freestanding signs. And they are creating a very kind of, bold presence out there as driving the brand, as you would expect from any retail tenant. I think there needs to be some sensitivity towards that guideline. So, it's definitely not the ones that are inboard of your site that cause any concern to me, but the ones that are, forward along Route 40.
Sure.
To which the manual would certainly apply.
Yep, absolutely. And most of the signs, obviously, other than the 20-foot freestanding sign, are wayfinding, which is encouraged by the guidelines to help navigate, because this is there are several uses on here, how to get back to this use. These aren't overly large signs. This is a 4-foot high sign. Many of these signs are actually internal to the site as well, as you can see here. I mean, really, you just have the enter and the exit sign out here along 40 that would be called visible from Route 40.
Right, and there's the one that you've added to the presentation.
And the freestanding, you're correct. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
One
To circle back,
clarification, though, this is in the TNC area of the plan, correct? Right. So some of what you're talking about are recommendations in the other areas, but some of the items are requirements or prohibitions in the TNC. So, like that freestanding sign would be a prohibition in the TNC area.
This is in the TNC, correct?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify some of the things you were linking to were recommendations in some areas, but requirements in the TNC. So
sure. Sorry
to interrupt, Ethan.
Thank you.
No, that's fine, and thanks for clarifying. That was exactly where I was coming from. Brandon, I certainly can see the site plan, and there's certainly not a level of distrust to think you didn't test anything. So I understand what you're up against. I can see that. You know, my concern is about sort of that infrastructure, you know, that infrastructure forward aesthetic, particularly perching these up on a hill. And I wonder if there's an architectural solution that can help that, right? It is, as you know, getting it into you know, into a perspective view down below, and you know, is it something again as simple as creating a 3-foot high knee wall that then is somehow obscured by bushes or something like that, that helps obscure that. So we're not just creating, you know, these gooseneck, brightly intense blue infrastructure elements as you know, the primary facade of your site onto the boulevard.
Sure. And I mean, you mentioned the knee wall and the shrubs. So I mean, like Eric indicated, we do want to move those shrubs to the top to help provide that I don't know if buffer is the right term to use, but more of that knee wall approach where we have that solid row of shrubs to provide some of that screening of those the blue fixtures. And open to any other ideas of if the panel, and happy to discuss any other thoughts on how to achieve any additional benefit from a view shed from the Baltimore National Pike. But if we think shrubs are enough, it's certainly something we're able to achieve.
Larry, do you want to try you again? We could hear you last time.
You could hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it still seems like a bad connection, but yeah, my question was, it does regard the landscaping, and Bob, you brought up a good point about the, you know, is it possible to do some, you know, larger trees? I'm having a hard time seeing the plan in terms of, you know, the grades there. Is there any opportunity at the top of the slope to have some shade trees between the curb and where the top of the slope is?
Yeah, so let me get back down to landscape plan.
It looks like the right of way is at the top of the slope, Larry.
So the right of way actually sits
So
here.
I mean, I see the vacuum.
Go ahead, Larry.
It looks like the street side is the best side to do it. And I can't believe we can't find some kind of an upright tree to go there that doesn't give people fits at the utility company, but who knows?
So that I see the grading plan. Where are the trees going now? Are they outside the right of way where the sidewalk is?
It's between the sidewalk and the right of way, correct. And maybe if I get to the landscape plan, that'd be a little more helpful for you.
Okay, and that's where the power lines are.
There you go. And the power lines are actually on the basically on the property line. That's why it's somewhat hard to see that.
Okay,
It's right under this.
so that's why you can't do the larger shade tree, right?
Right.
But
There's
if
no upright tree that'll fit in there?
So, yeah. I mean, there are things like, you know, the columnar type maples. I mean, there are, you know, a variety. It's still a maple, but they're more, you know, upright. But, and I don't know if is that the reason the utility company doesn't want the tree, is because of the broad canopies of I guess those are.
Yeah, Larry, it's really the BGE has a list of trees that are permitted and not permitted, and even SHA has the list of permitted and non-permitted. So when you cross-reference them, you know, you really end up with 3 trees that we can utilize within 40 feet of overhead power lines, and that is crepe myrtle, cercis, and hawthorn. So, you know, our palette is somewhat limited, and the fact that the county requires us to get a letter from BGE, basically approving our landscape plan, we kind of get stuck into those 3 varieties when you're within 40 feet of overhead power lines.
Right, and I'm not against the red bud. I mean, I do want to give you kudos for having, it looks like about 90% of native trees and shrubs. So yeah, I'm really glad to see that. I just wanted to, I'm concerned like Bob said, and I think Ethan, again, things were breaking up at my end, so I'm not sure I heard all the comments, but I think the concern is that the blue sort of arched vacuum areas are going to be so prominent there. I don't think they need to be. Maybe they just peek up above the shrubs a bit, but it'd be nice if there was some sort of shrubbery at the top that was high enough to at least camouflage that.
And Larry, so I understand.
I mean, I see you have.
What kind of height do you think that is, in your opinion, just for discussion?
Well, how high are the vacuum arches, or the bright blue? I mean, are they 10 feet in the air or
Higher.
They certainly, as they
higher?
curl back into the parking spaces, they obviously stretch higher than a car. So I believe probably about 8 feet.
And I want to jump in here just real quick, and I don't think that's a question for the panel. I think that's a question for the design team to study the aesthetics of this, because of getting a perspective view from the street. And I think the reason I'm saying that is just because of the retained earth or the berm that goes up. So not only are you putting these structures up there, you're perching them up above. So your point of view is from a worm's eye perspective. So height is going to be exaggerated at that point.
Understood.
I think at the end of the day, if you're doing the evergreen shrubs you're talking about, they've got to be at least 3 or 4 feet high at the end of the day to have some kind of a unifying impact on that street edge.
Well, I would agree.
So if they're willing to do that, I'd be happy with that, as opposed to what I've seen in other places in the county. We have not heard from Dan and Vivian, so somebody jump in.
I'll go ahead. Or my two big questions. I see a lot of grading along there, along the front. My concern is vertically. Are you aware that with the power poles and everything, fiber optic lines, whatever along the front, that you guys that will not be an issue?
Yeah, Dan, it's a great point and something that we did consider. So the overhead utility lines are all at the base of the foot of the slope. So it's not like we're grading through the overhead lines, if you will. And additionally, we're not cutting out in the right of way on any of the underground, what we've identified from electric or maybe some of the signal lines. So we're maintaining grade out there.
And then my second, you touched on that you didn't have to do water quantity, but you had to do water quality. I don't recall mentioning what you guys were going to do for the water quality.
Yeah, so we're going to use Filtera units that have the proprietary filtering devices in the media, MDE approved from an water quality standpoint, to treat that redevelopment requirement.
Okay. That's it for me.
Great, thank you.
Vivian?
Hello. I just had a question. Can you go back to the section, the site sections? So I guess I'm not understanding the need for the retaining wall east of the site. The grade to the east of that retaining wall, isn't that the same grade as the roadway to the west?
So let me just make sure. So we are looking as if we're standing on 40 at the site. Is this the tunnel would be kind of long ways parallel with 40 going this way? Is this the orientation you're talking about?
Section AA.
Yeah, okay. And then
yeah, so to the right, that retaining wall that's abutting the existing parking area, where is the grade on the right side of that wall?
So if you see this light gray dash, and you might not be able to see it on my screen, but there's a light gray dash, and that's the existing grade through here. So as you can see, there's a significant jump from here to here.
So it
from
is
the
that high. It's that high up there.
Yeah, yeah, and this is based on a on field run survey, so this is accurate, correct.
How high is that wall?
Great question. I'm going to go back to the grading plan if we could. So for about 5 feet in here, gets maybe about 5 feet.
It'd really be useful if you guys did those sections at 1-to-1, and we know where the building is, so you could put a cut line in there and just show us what the real heights of these walls are, because I mean, you know, the layperson looks at this and goes, "Oh my God, they're enormous."
It's exaggerated. That's fair.
I know, but they're not helpful.
So the grade to the left is only 5 foot lower than the top of the wall?
Correct. So
Okay.
the access
Looks
drive
like
is
20
lower,
feet
this is
high.
higher. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And it diminishes as you move up, right?
Yeah, in both directions. Yeah. So it'll tween out here, and then similarly as you get higher.
Okay. I mean, I don't really have any additional comments to add to what has already been said. I guess I do have some concerns about the blue canopies. I think they're fun. I just don't know if they're complying with the design intent of the guidelines. Because I see, like, if it's almost kind of a free for all with everything that's going in on this route. I just don't know if it's true to the field. I keep thinking, would this be allowed in Vienna, Virginia? You know, like on Maple Avenue. I know this stretch of Route 40 isn't that, but I think we're trying to get towards that a little bit, and it seems to be. I'm wondering if, I know that's a branding thing, but I know when you do have design guidelines, oftentimes a lot of commercial kind of branding will have to conform to the design guidelines more. So, I mean, I see that you did that with the coloring of the building, but I'm wondering if too you might reconsider the styling of the canopies for the vacuum stations. And that's all I had.
Vivian, just to piggyback on this again, I'd like to refer the design team to page 14 of the manual, which sets forth the purpose and the land use goals of the TNC district, and you know, challenge you to look at that and think about how this plays within those guidelines.
I have one more question. If you could expand this current drawing you have up here so we can see what's all the way to the left. So all of these spaces along the frontage on Route 40 are all vacuum stations.
Correct. Yes.
So am I correct in assuming this is a dumpster at the end?
That is correct. This is the proposed dumpster location.
And how many vacuum stations do you have?
There are 21 vacuum spaces
Really?
total. So some are they're over here and over here, just to be clear.
That's a lot of vacuum stations. I'm wondering if we shouldn't eliminate a couple of these at the end and have a turnaround here for people who come in, and there's 20 people vacuuming at the same time, and they can't get out, and a dumpster. So a truck has to come all the way in here and then back all the way out again.
Yes. So Bob, that's a good point when we thought of that. So this area back here is striped so that if somebody does come down here and for whatever reason they made a wrong turn, they're lost, they are able to then turn around and go. I mean, we don't have room for a cul-de-sac or anything along those lines. But generally, we've seen this work at other locations from that kind of turnaround standpoint.
It just seems really awkward, and it seems like that's a lot of vacuum stations. Seems like it's overkill.
So
Anyway,
just to point out, Bob, it's Chad with WLR. Our number one customer complaint is not enough vacuums, and
really,
the volume that this site will do, if we could have 40 vacuums, it still wouldn't be enough. But it's express car wash, and unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast. And so, yeah, the more vacuums we can have, the better.
I've never seen any of them full, but that's not my place to say. Okay,
I'd love for you to visit one of our sites, Bob.
okay. So we'll open it to some recommendations unless there's any other questions. I'll start off, and this may not be possible, but I would recommend that the planning and zoning do not approve this plan unless the business leasing it, and I think these guys have done a great job, unless the people leasing it close that existing driveway, extend the curb, and landscape that driveway.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have a second recommendation.
Are these are motions or recommendations, Bob?
Recommendations. I'm sorry. What is there a difference? These are a motion. It's a motion.
Motions. Okay. Recommendations don't need a vote, and they're just sort of good for the order.
It's a
It's a motion.
It's a motion.
Motion.
You may not have that power, but let's get rid of it while we can, and it's a small price for them to pay to lease this to a business. My second motion would be that the landscape architect consider moving the shrubbery to the top of the hill along Route 40 to further screen the vacuum area.
I'll second that one as well.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that the design team look at the design manual for Route 40 traditional neighborhood center district and propose a solution particularly for that front bay that meets the intent of the street front forward facing aspects of this project. This could include the elimination of the blue overhead vacuum cleaners in that location, or propose additional screening to some level that is studied from a point of view of the street and not just as a flat plan.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is that unanimous?
I'd like to make a motion about the signage, that the signage again looks back at the design manual and complies to the intention of that manual.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Anything else?
Did Larry jump off, or because I saw a bad connection there? If he wants to, maybe he can write in the chat if he wants to make a motion.
I think his only concern was to revisit the street trees to see if there wasn't something that might pass muster with the utility company. But I don't want to speak for him.
Larry, you're muted. It looks like you're trying to talk, but you're muted.
All right, you hear me now?
Yes.
This is the worst connection I've ever had on this WebEx. So no, I didn't have any other motions. I'm happy with the trees that they've selected, but I do agree that the shrubbery should be studied to see if it could be taken to the top of that slope and form a little bit of a screening for the vacuum stations.
Okay. Anything else? Well, if not, I think you guys have done the best job you can with what you had. And you know, with a few minor changes, I think we're done here tonight. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anything else, Anthony?
Just that we do have projects lined up for our next meeting, so I'm going to send out the WebEx invitation to hold the next meeting in April. We have some big projects coming in, so make sure you take a look and ask Nick any questions you have as those materials get sent out. Nick, was there anything else?
Nope. I mean, that kind of covered it. I was just going to let everybody know the next meeting is April 13th. Yeah, and we'll have the materials coming out shortly.
Thanks,
Oh,
everybody.
I won't be here.
Okay. Thanks for letting us know, Vivian. I hope you're going someplace fun.
I move to adjourn.
Hopefully. Haven't decided yet.
All in favor of adjourning?
Bye.
I just have one question, Anthony. When I'm having trouble like this, which is the first time, is there some trick that you can do? Because I was hearing things very, interspersed.
No, the only trick that I could say other than logging out and logging back in is that when there's a poor connection, sometimes it is helpful to turn your video off and to just use audio. But those are the only tricks that I've sort of heard that work, is turning off the audio and then just trying to log back in. So hopefully it doesn't happen again.
One other idea is make sure nobody else is streaming anything in your house.
Oh, yeah. Other users in the house. True.
Yeah.
Stop watching Netflix.
Yeah, that could be the case. I don't know what my wife's doing, but okay. Well, thank you all, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.